Hello and welcome to No Drama Discipline, Calming the Chaos Part 2. My name is Jennifer Sheridan and I'm the Family Services Coordinator here at the Coleman Center in Petal, Mississippi. And this is Part 2 of a series of webinars for parents all about discipline and all about some pitfalls, as we'll see today, that most of us make, even when we are awesome parents. We're still making some of these big mistakes. And then the last episode or webinar that we had, I covered really the groundwork for discipline. So if you have not watched that, if you're listening, if this is a recording, you got to this maybe on YouTube, and you haven't listened to part 1, I would encourage you to stop this and go back to part 1, because I feel like it's a good foundation. If we don't start out the same place, we're just going to be confused the whole entire time. Trying to talk about really like what is discipline and how do we manage this in our homes in a healthy way where we feel safe as parents, as like human beings, fully grown, adulting out there in the world trying to raise these children, and safe for our kiddos who put all of their trust, hopefully, in us as their caregivers, or who are learning to put their trust in us as their caregivers. Now, I always like to start these webinars with saying rules of the road. We're going to use the chat box to ask questions. So if you're here live, you can definitely do that anytime. Put it in the chat box. You can select share to everyone or just share to presenter to me, Jennifer Sheridan, and I'll get that question and hopefully answer it. But the second thing we're going to do is we're going to leave shame at the front door. We are going to leave that behind because we're not going to spend the next 30 minutes beating ourselves up about what we should have, could have, would have done. But we're going to spend the next 30 minutes brainstorming and coming up with new ways to parent. Maybe when our style or the style of parenting that our parents had with us growing up isn't working in our home now. So for some of you, maybe it's working great. You utilize the same techniques, the same strategies as your parents did. It was successful when you were a kid. It's successful now. That's fantastic. But maybe some of you are like me, and the things that my parents did, although my parents are so fantastic, and I really I still love them deeply. Some of the strategies they utilize are not best for my kids that I'm parenting in 2019. So the third thing is I want us to be open to learning new ideas. So if you are here and you're like, I feel like spanking is the only way to go and I'm not open to any other strategy, this may not be the webinar for you. But if you are like, using timeout is just not working in my family, I'm here to hear all the different strategies, some other ideas out there. This is the webinar for you. So we're all going to leave the door open for new ideas, but we're going to leave shame behind and not take it so personally if I say something that you do. Because everything I talk about today, guys, I have done in my own home. It has come out of my mouth. It has been a part of my parenting, and either I'm still working on it or I've been able to squash it away by practicing patience with myself. So that's what I hope you guys can do today. Now, we are going to be talking about 20 discipline mistakes that even great parents make. This is from the book No Drama Discipline by Daniel Siegel and Tina Payne-Bryson. Guys, I just did an entire book review on the whole brain child. You can find that on our YouTube channel. If you haven't read that book and you're like, I don't have time, I'm not reading a whole book, you're crazy. Great. You can just listen to it, put it in your ears when you're driving, listen to it when you go on your morning walk, 30 minutes for each chapter section. And I talk about their strategies for parenting your child based on their brain state. So based on what's going on in their little brains and based on what's going on in your adult brain. They talk about that in the whole brain child, but same authors are coming back talking about how we can take the drama out of discipline and how we can focus on teaching our kids just a better way of living, a better way of learning to be a child, of learning to live in a family versus all of these punitive things. So we're going to just jump right in because we have limited time. And guys, there are 20 discipline mistakes. We're going to try to get through 10 of them today. The next 10 we are going to get to in January. So we're going to have a part 3 to this series. So who knows how long this series is going to last, because guys, talking about discipline and talking about parenting is just a deep well. And what I hope that I can do for you is to give you some strategies, give you some things to think about, put some extra tools in your toolbox, and then you guys are going to make a decision because you're the parents of the house, right? I'm not there. I am not, you can't call me up every time you have an issue. You can't, it's just, that's not how this works. So you're the parents of the house. You're going to have to figure out what works for you and for your children that you're parenting. So we're going to get through 10 of these today. I believe we are. And then we're going to get to a couple parent scenarios that I have. Give me 1 second. I'm about to turn this heater off in my office. Now, if you're watching this live, Merry Christmas. We're having our Christmas party today here at the Coleman Center. And I have my Christmas earrings on. And we are launching headlong into the Christmas season. If you were watching this sometime after December 2019, well, hello. We have a lot going on here at the Coleman Center, and I'm excited to be able to take some time out and talk with you guys today. So number 1, 20 discipline mistakes. Our number 1 is our discipline becomes consequence-based instead of teaching-based. Now we're going to talk about this more when we get to one of our parent scenarios. But guys, if our whole view of discipline is all about what do I do, what kind of consequence do I give when my child has done X, Y, Z, hit me, thrown every one of my couch cushions on the floor because they're so angry, or punched their sister in the face. When it becomes about what's the consequence, well, consequence for punching sis in the face, maybe sis punches you back. That's natural consequence, I would say. That's a consequence that comes back from just this, how we treat other people, we are going to be treated that way. Maybe sis has some great self-control, but sis starts crying. And now she's upset, and we know we're the cause of this. And so then we start feeling some guilt. Maybe a touch, a little shame comes in. And so these are all consequences. So I'm a big proponent of natural consequences, not a huge proponent of consequence-based. I'm really more into teaching, because what ends up happening is we turn these consequences into punishment, and punishments just don't work. You can't amp it up enough for a child who has experienced trauma. You can't amp it up enough for a child who has flipped their lid. They are raging mad. They have been embarrassed. They have been hurt. And now they have reached the accelerated level of anger. Guys, I can't find a consequence that's big enough, right? If they break my great aunt's Christmas tree, that they know is so precious to me, then there's no consequence big enough to balance that out. And it's not going to make me feel any better. But if I view this as teaching-based, then I'm going to get somewhere. So I'm going to give you an example of natural consequences. I have these awesome little maracas. They're on this string. Somebody just gave me, I think 3 of these. I was so excited to have these. And I know you're probably thinking, oh my gosh, if I had 3 of these, I'd have to get rid of them and give them to you. So I got these in, and one of my little friends came in and said they wanted to play with them. I said, sure, let's do this. So they climb up on the chair with my guidance and assistance, because in my office, we are allowed to climb on the black chair. So we climb on the black chair. I'm helping this little person up. They get them down, and what do they immediately start doing? Swinging them like nunchucks, because why wouldn't we swing these? Well, what happens? Choo, choo, choo. So I say, they're not nunchucks, they're maracas. So we start shaking them, and then they get back in, and what happens? Walk. Now, these are real wood from Nicaragua. Real wood. They smack the little person on the head, and they were like, wow, that hurt. Yeah, so I immediately said, of course that hurt. That got you right in the noggin, didn't it? And so then we did some caring activities to care for the hurt. But guess what? We put those maracas down for a little while, and then when we were ready to pick them back up, we held them securely in our hands and only shook them. That's a natural consequence. I don't have to punish that child. I don't have to tell that child, hey, you can never play with those maracas again because you didn't obey me. No, they found out what happens when they swing the maracas around like nunchucks. They smack them in the head, and it really does hurt. So that's just a little quick natural consequence that I think is important. But the opportunity was not to say, like, I told you so. I told you that was going to happen. Did I say that? Absolutely not. I said, oh my gosh, and I cared for their hurt. So they were able to receive some nurturing care from me after that. And I said, let's just hold them really tightly in our hands. And I said, do you agree? And they said yes. And so we did a little shake and chicken activity. So fun. Number 2, we think that if we're disciplining, we can't be warm and nurturing. Now, if you grew up in a cold household that maybe parents were disconnected, maybe there was addiction, mental health issues, maybe your parents were parented kind of like my grandparents were, where it was just kind of like you were on your own for the most part. You kind of took care of yourself because mom and dad might have been working outside of the household. And so we think we can't be warm and nurturing because we're disciplining them. And I think this goes back to our ideas that discipline should be punishment, right? And we must be harsh and mean. But really, if we're thinking about teaching days, the best thing we can do is be warm and nurturing, because that's when I learn best. Isn't that when you learn best? When you feel connected, when you have that teacher in the classroom that you'll just walk through fire for. I know my kids, both of my kids who are a year apart in school, they had the same teacher 1 year. So both in this grade, they had the same teacher. They still talk about that teacher today. They've had probably 8 teachers since then. They still talk about that same teacher today. And I'm going to tell you what it was about her. She was extremely playful, and she was very forgiving. So if she was disciplining, and I mean, she had rules, it was not chaotic, it was not wild and out in there, but she was extremely warm and nurturing. If we are fostering this type of teaching in our home, then our kids don't see teaching as a negative thing. They see teaching as this is an opportunity to be more connected to my parents who are providing this constant care. So number 3 of our discipline mistakes, we confuse consistency with rigidity. I just encourage families, especially if you have kiddos coming home to you through adoption, and maybe they're a little bit older. I know I experienced this in my own home when my kids came home to us, and we've got to put in some routines. Kids love a good routine. They know what to expect. It doesn't all have to be terrible stuff. Sometimes we think routine has to be just like, oh, we're scrubbing the floor, and this is the day we dust, and this is the day we go out and pick weeds in the garden. No, some things we do consistently and in a routine that are super fun, and our kids love that because it gives them something to look forward to. It gives them this opportunity to feel safe. There's this concept of felt safety because they can actually be safe in the house, but not feel safe on the inside. So what we provide with consistency and routines is that felt safety. Now, we are so rigid that we say, I cannot flex on this, I cannot overlook you doing this, then what will end up happening is we will get into a power struggle, which we'll talk about probably in our next webinar. But we'll end up getting into power struggles. We'll end up dying on a hill we don't actually care about when it comes down to it. So what I want you to do is look at those things in your life. How are you being consistent, and how are you being rigid? So one good example might be brushing teeth, right? We all want our kiddos to brush their teeth twice a day, morning and night, right? That's what the dentist tells us to do. We take them to the dentist once a year or every 6 months. I think it's every 6 months. In my household, Dad is in charge of those appointments. So we go there. The dentist tells us morning to night, brush your teeth, right? But guess what, guys? If we're having a meltdown and it's 8:45, 9 p.m. on a school night, I have young children. We got to get up at 6 o'clock, 6:20, 6:30, and we're melting down and we're just coming off of this. Am I going to say, you never brushed your teeth? And that's what we do. That's our schedule before bed. No, guys, no. In one night, cavities are not going to form in their entire mouth. So guess what? I'm going to flex on that night, and I'm going to say what they need is for me to stand in there and sing a song to them. What they need for me to do is to rub their back, not make them get out of the bed and go brush their teeth. Now I can flex on that. But consistently, are we brushing our teeth every night? Yeah, that's our routine. Get up, we brush our teeth, we may pray, we may read a book, whatever it is that you guys do to help kind of get everybody ready for bed. But if we confuse consistency with rigidity, we're gonna make a huge mistake and miss some connecting moments. Okay, number 4, we talk too much. Ladies and gentlemen, why is it we can sometimes barely talk to our spouse? Like we don't have anything else to say to our spouse. We don't want to talk through an issue or problem. When our kids come up with this, we have all the words to say, right? We just want to go on and on. My brother and I, we used to laugh and make jokes, and we would say, just beat us instead of lecturing us. Like, just give me a whooping instead of lecturing me. Because my mom, she was so great at that. But it would just make you feel so terrible. And you realize, if I could just get a whooping, which I think I only got a whooping one time in my life, but if I could just get a whipping, then it would be over, right? My backside might hurt for a few seconds, and then it's going to be over. But here we go with young kids. One problem is we use too many words. They're not hearing it. And then we say the next time they do the same thing, we're like, I talked to you about this. I told you. I already told you, right? I already told you this. I already explained this. But guys, if they're living in this like reptilian amygdala taken over brain, then they're not hearing anything. They're in survival state, and all you're doing is overstimulating by using all these words. So number 4, when you're disciplining, when you're correcting, when you're hitting into these teaching moments, we're going to use less words. If we've not even hit that level, we haven't connected yet, then all I'm going to be focused on is connecting non-verbally. With my body, I'm going to try to get close to them. I'm going to lay my hand on their shoulder. If they're touch aversive, I may even do like a symbolic touch. I do this oftentimes with kids in the therapy room because I maybe won't know them that well in the beginning. I won't know how they'll react to touch. So I might do a symbolic touch. It could be, my hand is here. I'm not actually touching, skin is touching, but you understand. I'm like cradling you. This is a nurturing sort of, I'm coming close to you to be with you. For one of my kiddos, it's a lot of touch. So it's like, maybe the hand on the head or the hair, a rub on the shoulder. Maybe this is what I'm communicating to get that connection repaired back. Okay, number 5, we focus too much on the behavior and not enough on the why behind the behavior. Guys, if we're not being detectives, no one else is going to be a detective for our kids. No one else. Your teachers, they've got too many kids in the classroom. They don't have enough time during the day. So they're not your kid's best advocate. You are your child's best advocate. And part of our job is to figure out why our children are doing the things that they are doing. And no, they're not just doing it because they're jerks. I mean, I know sometimes you probably think this. I know I think this sometimes. I'm like, are they just trying to ruin my life? I don't actually think they're trying to ruin my life. But if I turn on my detective glasses, put my detective hat on and say, okay, why did this happen at this time? Then I will serve my child so much better than just saying, they did that thing and that's not acceptable. Well, the thing may not be acceptable, like, hitting me. That it's never acceptable to hit mama in our house, right? I always say I'm a delicate flower. This is why I can't wrestle on the ground like dad, because I will get hurt. So it's never acceptable to hit mom. But if I don't stop and say, like, why did they come at me? Why did this happen? Then I'm really missing the whole point and the whole opportunity to connect and to teach a better way to get that need met. All of our actions are getting the need met in some sort of way. All right. So Maslow's, I wanted to throw this in here, guys. If you went to college, you took Psych 101, you read or were taught about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This came out 1943, guys. We've been talking about this for a long time. But here we see all of these things are happening. I think this ties back in to this, like, why behind the behavior. If all of these needs are being met, now Maslow is saying these are, there's a hierarchy to this. So if our physiological needs are not being met, we're tired, we're hungry, we can never get to that love and belonging, that connection stage. I'm in the camp of the people who kind of criticize this a hair. I do believe we have all of these needs and we need them all. We're trying to work on that. We're trying to get to that self-actualization. But I actually think we need that love and connection, like, all throughout. Like, I would put it like down the side of the mountain or the side of the pyramid as like one of those consistent things that I think we actually get this love and belonging, this connection, which I think leads to good self-esteem. I think we get that through providing all of these physiological needs. And so if we're ignoring that, then we can't get to anywhere. We can't feel safe. Our kids cannot feel safe. They can't be ready to learn if their appetite is not taken care of. If they're so tired, they can barely function. And our kids who have experienced trauma in all these sorts of ways, whether it was, a specific event, or if it was kind of like a long-term stressful thing, if it was, exposure to drugs or alcohol in utero, it was a bad birthing experience, traumatic, painful. Early hospitalization is also a key one if our kiddos were born premature and in a hospital bed and not tucked under, mama's arm, the first several months. I think that all contributes to trauma. But if we're not meeting all of these needs, we cannot expect them to sit in a classroom and learn or perform on a test or manage social situations that we feel like someone their age should be able to. So what we're going to do is keep this in the back of our minds. So number 6, we forget to focus on how we say what we say. So we want to focus on how we're saying this. If we're using sarcasm, if that's like your natural bend, which it totally is mine, I have to watch how I say things to my kiddos, because oftentimes I can bring shame into the conversation and I don't want that. So I'm going to look at how I'm saying these things in order to reach them, to make a connection, to figure out what's really going on behind the scenes. Okay, number 7, we communicate that our kids shouldn't experience big or negative feelings. Guys, this is probably, I would say this will be my top 3 in this list. I have parents that come to me that want a behavior extinguished, not brought down, but just like completely extinguished. And the problem is, like, our kids are similar to us in that they're going to have extremely big feelings and negative feelings. They are not going to like some things. They're not going to like some people. And so when we say things like, well, you should just be friends with them, just make friends with them. Why? I'm not friends with everybody. You're not friends with everyone. There are people who get on your nerves. There are going to be people who get on our kids' nerves. And guess what? That includes adults. That includes teachers that they're put with. And so we cannot dismiss this. And I think when we do, we are completely missing the mark with being able to identify with our kids how we can say, I'm on the same team. I'm matching you. I'm here with you. I'm hearing what you're saying. And we're going to figure out a way, not for you to like that person, but figure out a way for you to manage being around that person. if we're going to use that example. Okay, number 8, we overreact. So our kids focus on our overreaction, not their own actions. Guys, I know you think, I've never overreacted. I'm a therapist. I'm like the picture of calm all the time with my kids, right? Wrong, guys. Our overreaction oftentimes is worse. It creates more harm and more damage and more disconnection than the actual incident in the beginning. So if we can moderate our behavior and our own anger, and I would say if you are struggling with this, seek out your own therapist, seek out your own help, support group, find some people you can vent to. But what we need to do is be able to moderate and have our own self-control in the moment so we can communicate and model to our children how they can respond. So our child spills water again on those laminate floors we put in our house. Guys, why do we put those down? We should have just stripped it down to the concrete slab, just called it a day. But if we overreact, they already feel a little sense of shame because they know, oh, Dad hates when I spill water on the floor. If we overreact, we miss the moment to say, like, we all make mistakes. I want to be with you and help you clean this up. So we're going to look at that. Number 9, we don't repair. I think I could talk hours about this one concept. When we don't repair the relationship with our kids, we are missing out. We're just missing out on teachable moments. We're missing out on how to model to ask for forgiveness, which I think is super important. And I think we're missing out on reconnecting and then being able to move on. Now, my personality is one that I want to like repair and then like, let's move on because I don't want to deal with this because I have big feelings and I feel that on the inside. When people are upset, I feel that on the inside. So I want to repair quickly. I am easy to ask for forgiveness most of the time. And it's because of my own self-awareness and the need for me to feel safe in my own body. And so when I do those things, when I flip out and I lose it, I need to be able to go and say, that was not how I wanted to parent you. Will you forgive me? I love you and I don't want to act that way. I want to do better. And that to me has been like, and I could not do that in the beginning because I thought I could never be wrong. Like I thought as a mom, like I needed to always be right. Everything I did was perfect and right. Guys, that's not the reality that we're living in. We are making mistakes just like our kids are making mistakes. So we need to repair and show them how to repair relationships because I want to be in a relationship with my kids until I'm dead. Till this life is over and I pass on to the next life. Like I want to be in relationship with them. And so we're going to have to repair because we're going to have tiffs. We're going to have arguments. We're going to have times where we just don't see eye to eye. And so I want to model that for them. All right, number 10, we lay down the law in an emotional reactive moment. Then we realize we've overreacted, right? So we're driving to grandma's house on Thanksgiving. My kids are punching and pushing and just starting to get amped up, right, in the back of the car. We've only been in the car for 15 minutes, but that's where we are now. And so I just said this past Thanksgiving, guys, stop hitting each other or I'll, and then I just stopped. And then I turned back around and then I just started giggling to myself because I realized like in the middle of that sentence, I was like, what am I going to say to them? Like nothing, but they were amping me up, right? I was trying to read my book and have like a moment and they had amped me up. I had allowed myself to get a little out of control. And so I had this reactive moment and I said, or I'll, and then I had no idea what I was about to say. Like, what was I going to say? And then I start laughing about how funny it is that was my first reaction. And so then they stopped and they said, or you'll what? And I just said, I don't know what I was about to say. Y'all, please just don't hit each other. We have a long way to go before we get to grandma's house. Guys, I was just honest in that moment. There was nothing, there was no like punishment or consequence or anything that was going to happen. We were in the car, right? Going to Thanksgiving. We're about to eat this massive meal and all these sweets and all these treats and all these good things. And I didn't want to carry that on, but I had to catch myself in the middle of it. And then it just made me start laughing because I realized how ridiculous that was. So, guys, let's catch ourselves and let's not try to lay down the law when we are emotional, when we're feeling very reactive. Maybe we need to just say, we're going to calm this down for now. I need a minute. I need a minute to recoup, get myself together, and then we'll move on. So, guys, I hope these 10 of this first 10 discipline mistakes even great parents make, I hope this has been helpful for you. It will help you kind of think through what are some of your parenting strategies and what are some things you want to tweak in your household. I'm not saying we got to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but I'm saying we might can tweak some areas. We can start being aware of what's going on in our home, what's going on in ourselves, in order that we can parent our kids in a healthy way. We do not have time to get to our parent scenarios, but if you have a question, contact us on Facebook. You can email me at jennifer.sheridan that's Sheridan with the D, at pedalschools.com, or give us a call here at the Coleman Center. Our next education webinar is going to be Tuesday, January 14th. It's not the first Tuesday because, guys, I'm just coming back from Christmas break here at the schools. And so our next webinar is going to be January 14th from 12:30 to 1. We're going to continue on with these next 10 big mistakes that most of us are making or have made in the past. And then we'll also hit some scenarios that some of our parents have sent in. If you have a scenario you want to send in, message us on Facebook or email me. Love to include them in one of our webinars. Thanks so much for joining me. Hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I'll see you soon. Bye.